So I already took a peek of your database and I saw a couple interesting things. You said that you already did a database review of your own and you saw some things. What did you see in your database that is worth mentioning?
Okay, let me enter this file.
Okay.
So actually, I was doing my database review 2 times, and I don't know if the player are adjusting here, but I don't think so. But there are some fucking major changes.
Okay.
Actually,
the one you sent me is the newest way you play or the older way you play?
No, that's the newest.
Okay. Fair enough.
The reverse c-bet, when I was reviewing my database 3 months ago, the reverse c-bet of the population was like 39 and now it's like 54, so it's a huge difference. And fold versus reverse c-bet was 33 and now it's 45.
That is for you yourself or for population?
No, for population. So
Okay.
it's kind of strange, it's a huge difference.
That could have to do with variance to some degree. Variance can be really, really... I mean, how many hands were you looking at before?
Before it was like 200,000, now it's like 400,000, and it might be to some degree adjustment of the players because
it could be.
There are a lot of bots. That's for sure, because everybody know that iPoker is like a fucking super botted because.
Oh really?
The site doesn't fucking care. You know, you can write to them. You know, you can have everything that's simply the bots, and they don't care.
Yeah. Okay. So, are you familiar with hand to node? Kind of like the layout.
Yeah, I was playing Poker Bros with it. Yeah, it's cool, but it's more expensive than others. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's cool to look at your database. You can look at a lot of specific stats by default. So one thing that I saw in this first, like this is the open race tab. On this first tab, I saw a couple things that I wonder about. So for example, your fold to 3-bet is lower when you open on earlier positions than when you open on later positions. So you fold to 3-bets more as you open on later positions. And why do you think that is?
Actually, what are you looking at? Because like it's like 36k hands. What's that?
Yes, it's 46k.
Oh man, it's not this one, because I was playing just for a while on 888 poker. That's where you're looking at. The other database is like 400k hands from Bet365.
Well, but is this the newest database that you have?
Yes, but this one that you are looking at is like from 5 months ago. I'm not playing there anymore.
Okay. I mean, if you have a newer database that you can send me right now.
I just sent you the newest database. I don't know why you don't have iPoker there. It's strange.
That is very strange, actually.
Yeah, because my main nickname is Prem 111. It's like 400k hands.
Yeah, it's not there.
Really, man.
Strange. Yeah, I don't know if you exported them in a weird way or if it's the hand to node not being able to read them.
Yeah, that might be the reason.
But still,
I exported all hands. All hands I got, actually.
Okay. Fair enough. But we can still go off this because unless you did something actively to change this, you might still have the leak in your game. Okay? If you didn't realize before and changed it, you might still have the leak before. So you fall to 3-bet more when you open early positions on this sample. Do you remember changing something about your game in that regard or no?
No, actually, I fold a lot versus 3-bet because the population is like 3-betting really tight, like 6%.
But you're under folding from early positions. That is the issue that you're having. You're over folding from early positions. So here's my hypothesis. the way you defend versus three bets is not positionally aware, or you defend very similar hands in every position, and therefore you end up overfolding when you open wide and underfolding when you open tight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course, man. But I can assure that's not the issue. I have proper ranges in Equilab.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
I can show you them. So
fair enough.
yeah,
Fair enough. Fair enough. That's fair enough. Okay.
Mathematically correct. Maybe that's the matter of the sample because.
I mean, it could be the sample, but I've seen the same pattern on a lot of databases, and it's usually that. So I just assumed that was the issue as well, because I've seen it so many more times.
Yeah, of course, of course.
Do you follow charts for betting? Your four bets.
I have charts for everything actually, but
okay.
You know, the four betting game on my games I'm playing actually is pretty easy, because the people are not free betting a lot.
Right.
Not worth to four bet bluff at all. Just to maybe just widen your four bet value range.
I understand.
Some checks.
Do you four bet bluff when villain is an aggressive player? So do you have hats on iPoker? Do you have hats? You have stats on villains? Okay. So if villain has like 10% free bet,
I'm very proficient. Yeah.
Yeah. If villain has like 10% free bet, you do four bet bluff against him, right?
Of course.
Okay. Fair enough.
If he's folding versus four bets enough, that's for sure, because some of them are just fucking crazy.
Even if they don't four bet enough to, or rather, like even if you don't know really if they four bet enough, because it's hard to have that stat. The fold to four bet stat is really difficult to have enough.
But on some of them I have like 50k hands, so
okay, then but against an aggressive player, if he's three betting like 9, 10, 11% overall, then before you have enough stats to know if you should four bet them, you should default to four bet bluffing them when appropriate.
Yeah, I have some GTO ranges from previous coaches from Weasel, and that was adjusted with a lot of high quality training videos.
Okay, good. Yeah, I was just seeing the numbers being like not corresponding to quote unquote the GTO numbers, and I was just asking for your reasoning behind it, and I think it's a pretty good reasoning.
Yeah. Of course, I try to adjust. I'm just trying to play full exploit. That's meant.
Good. I see that you open very wide on button and small blind, which is good. Wider than the GTO probably. I think that's completely fine. For three bets, okay. I see that you call kind of a lot, right? Or do you follow charts for calling, or do you do something exploitative too? Like for example, if a fish is in the big blind, you call every pocket pair, or that type of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know if it's actually worth it, because on Bet365 the rake is 6.5% on the low stakes, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was using this strategy that I tend to call more with the fishes on the blinds as I exploit, but now I think maybe I tried to free bet more because the rake is fucking eating me.
Yeah, we're gonna look at some of the call hands, because 30 VPIP with 23 PFR is a little bit strange. Okay, I'm not gonna say it's outright bad, but usually these numbers are close.
Actually, that was the first thing in my summary in database, that I should lower my VPIP to 25 from 30.
Yeah, and that I would assume that cold calling has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
Okay, this is not important.
I think that's maybe that's not the issue with the cold calling on early positions, but my blind game is just I called too much on the big blind. That's what I think actually.
Okay. Let's see. What I see is that you are, for example, you're not three betting enough blind versus blind. Do you three bet bluff at all, blind versus blind?
Yeah, of course. On my default ranges, it's like 21% big blind versus small blind.
Well, on this sample, you are three betting blind versus blind 11% rather than 21%. And I think that there is no exploitative reasoning for this, because I would say pool gets really, really exploited by you three betting a lot blind versus blind. Because they should like, I have a sim, pre-flop sim that I solved where villains open the small blind and then defend against three bets like pool does. I node locked the small blind to defend like pool does. And because they don't four bet enough, then suddenly we want to be three betting a lot, like a lot. So I think that this number should definitely be higher. If you play like more like GTO, like what you said, like maybe like 18% or something like that, that would be fine. If you go even further than that, that's probably going to work as well. So I would say that you need to take a look at your three betting versus steals. Do you follow charts for that, or you kind of like freestyle it? Because I assume if you play 12 tables, you can't really follow charts to the T. It's just too much things going
Yeah,
on.
I actually can, man, because yeah, I remember them a lot. I'm reading them for a long time, and I'm just
Okay.
reminding myself what the proper ranges are. So yeah, I'm
Okay.
pretty good at it.
So for example, let's see. So like this would be.
Yeah, but as you say, the reason might be that I'm misunderstanding, adjusting. Yeah.
Okay, so you are under three betting for an exploitative reason. I mean, against some
For
players it could
bad
be.
reason.
Okay, against some specific players that could be the case, but you need to keep into account that even if they call enough to the three bet, if they don't four bet you enough, you still print. Okay, because you're going to see bet flop and you're going to print. You know
okay,
what I mean?
Okay, but what about the bots that I was talking about? They have pretty high four bet on the small blind versus big blind free bets. What to do against them? What's the range would you suggest?
What is a four bet? What four bet do they have?
10% small blind versus big blind.
10%
like
four bet.
Yeah.
That is extremely low. That is extremely low. They should be
10% four bet.
Yeah, they should be four betting around. What is that? 10% range or 10%?
10% range.
Okay, because there are two different four bet stats.
Yeah, of course.
The four bet range and the four bet percentage. What I'm referring to right now is the four bet percentage. So that you three bet them, and 23% of the time that you three bet them, they four bet you. That's what the number that I'm referring to. The 10% is
that might be something about that.
Okay, let me look at Equilab.
Might be something around that.
Okay.
Yeah, because 10% range is like 23% of the small blind opener.
Yeah, that's what I'm. So this would be if they four bet 10%, it could be like let's just say it's probably not, but let's just say it's linear rather than
it's more bluffy than that. It's not merge.
Okay, let's imagine it's merge, but this would be a 10% range four bet. But what I'm referring to is that they open like say like 45%, and then from this 46%, 23% of this, which would be again like around 10, they four bet. Okay, so if
I'm always thinking about the range when I'm talking about
the range. Okay, fair enough. So you're saying that they are four betting 10% range, which would be like 20% overall, right?
Yeah.
That would be a okay four bet for them, but you should still. But let's look at GTO. So let's put this here. With three bet to 9. They should be four betting all of this shit. Okay, so they should be four betting a lot, and so you can't really adjust if they are playing GTO. If the bots are just following a GTO chart, you shouldn't adjust and be like, okay, I'm gonna three bet them less. If they're playing GTO pre-flop, the best you can do is just play GTO yourself pre-flop.
Okay, so what's the GTO free bet?
This one. So you would three bet like all of this good stuff, like nines plus, ace queen, ace jack suited, a few of these hands at some frequency, a lot of the suited connectors, almost always. Some of
what range is that?
What do you mean range?
How many percent free bet is that?
Okay, let me check. Wait, I have it here. Let's see, they open 3. It is around 17 to 18%.
Oh, okay.
17 to 18%.
Yeah, for sure. We need to do this database review with with the proper database next time.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But yeah, you need to be careful with the adjustments that you make, in the sense that if villain is playing a frequency that looks high but is actually GTO, then you shouldn't suddenly shut down and start knitting up, right? You should still play GTO until they actually go higher than that. Like if they went 15% range for bet, okay, then you basically only 3-bet them for value. You know, that's
I got that, man.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question for you. Do you know how to use the proper filters, like what people defend versus 1/3 c-bet, one
Yes.
half pot c-bet, and things like that?
Yes.
So maybe next time we do.
I've done some of that before, yeah.
Because I was doing some database review, but not so in detail, yeah, as it should be.
Yeah.
You know, just to make the separation of the versus fish and versus reg, the stances, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. There's an issue, like there's a problem though if you go too deep into that, because different runouts, people are going to play differently on different runouts. And so I totally get it. Like, I think it's super helpful to look at those stats, but it shouldn't be like the baseline of your game. Because, like, for example, if you find that people overfold to a 33% bet on the flop and they underfold to a pot bet on the flop, for example, maybe on some flops, they don't actually do that. Depending on the flop, they're going to react differently. So that's
yeah, that's for sure. I just want to know how to react versus unknown. That's it.
Yeah,
because otherwise I just shoot hard.
Okay, let's look at like the c-bet. Okay, you are overfolding extremely, like a lot to flop raises. Why do you think that is? So you are folding 59%. Yeah, you're c-betting.
What should GTO, like 50?
No, like maybe like 40 something. Remember MDF around?
So
not quite MDF, but 40 something usually. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know like all of the concepts in poker, I guess.
And why do you actively try to exploit something in pool, or?
Yeah, because the pool is really passive. That's the pure exploit, that's for sure.
Okay.
But
I would say that this is more true like a year ago, that pool was very passive when it comes to check raises, but recently most regs that I see on my stakes, I mean, I don't know how it is depending on the stakes on the side, but I saw the same regs go from like 5% check raise to 15% check raise in a few months. So I think that pool is actually getting good at check raises, and we need to start defending against them properly. Okay, so
you know what I actually figured out, that the bet 365 is really a special pool, because I was playing poker, so I was playing everywhere, but this pool, they just don't adjust. For 4 years they play the fucking same strategy. It's really like that, man. Believe it or not.
Okay, fair enough. I'm just making you aware of the deviations that you're having and why you might have them or not, and if you want to keep having them.
Yeah, of course, man. You are a GTO expert, I'm not.
Yeah, I'm basically Pio solver. No, I'm joking. Okay, one thing that I see here on the river is that you barrel river very infrequently. How do you approach river barreling? You don't bluff?
Yeah, when I saw that population reverse fold versus reverse c-bet is 33, I just figured out that it's not worth to bluff almost anything.
Okay, I would be careful though about that, because them folding 33% seems like kind of an extreme number, like it's an extremely low number that doesn't quite fit with other pool databases that I've looked at. And so I'm not sure if there could be like some sample bias or some type of thing like that.
Okay.
I don't know, but even then you need to be careful. Like even if you look at pool stats, you can't try to apply them to every single run out. Okay, like some run outs, pool is gonna massively overfold because they realize that you have a lot of nutted hands, right? And so on those run outs, you want to bluff every single hand. Like even if on the aggregate of all possible rivers they overfold or underfold, sorry.
Yeah,
You
of
need
course,
to,
man. I got your point. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So what river c-bet would you suggest then, or percentage?
Okay, the
Versus
GTO,
population that's folding for 45, because that's the
mean,
number for now.
it depends. It depends. I'm not sure if population has a leak and you're exploiting it. I'm not sure how it will look in the end, your river. What I know is that overall, like for most strong players that I've seen, their stats are going to look something like 60 flop, 45 maybe turn, and then upwards of like 55 to even 60 on the river. Okay,
Oh,
that's how GTO looks like, and how a lot of the strong players that I've looked at their databases, that's what they look like kind of high river barreling. Okay, you check fold, whatever, a little bit much, but it's whatever. Check call. Okay, this is another stat that is kind of that you should. Are you taking notes, by the way? So maybe what I said right now.
You said that you are recording, yeah?
Yeah. I will send you the video. This stat, cool. I think is kind of telling. Okay, so how do you approach c-betting out of position? So, for example, you open the small blind and big blind calls you, or maybe you get call.
I kind of know the GTO strategies and things like that. As I told you, I had some coachings and I was doing some high quality video, I don't know how to say it, coachings. Just the whole courses, from the internet. My friend gave me them for the lower price.
Okay. What I'm seeing is that when you are the preflop raiser and you get called and you are out of position, you don't really check raise that much. When you have like the nuts, you bet. And I'm assuming what you're doing is you have a strong hand, you bet. You have a medium hand, you check, essentially. And so when you check, you're not going to be raising a lot versus their stab, right?
Yeah, I'm going full exploit on this on the sites, and I'm just
what are you exploiting here?
Good hands. What I'm exploiting here, that's I versus fish that is folding the flops like 50% of the time. I bet every trash, and I don't check with the good hands because they don't bet versus missy bet enough.
Oh, you think so? How much bet versus missy bet they have in position?
It's 35.
Okay, fair enough.
That's the stat for population tendency.
Okay, fair enough. Then it makes sense. It makes sense at that in that sense. Okay. Let's look at preflop caller. Okay, so you raise a lot on the flop. That's good. You stab a shit ton. I assume you're doing this exploitatively as well. So whenever they check flop, you just go, right?
It should be more like 70% in my opinion. It's a bit low.
Okay, so what your strategy is, if they check flop, you go, right? Essentially.
Yeah, man. And bet turn out of position should be 70 as well. So I need to just make that's higher. Yeah, because if you see the leak, you need to go full exploit.
Yeah.
Not.
I completely agree. I completely agree. I just want you to make you aware that the reason it should be high is for exploitative reasons, but the actual number in equilibrium would be like maybe 40 for each one, right? Something like that. And that going like over 50 and it's already like overdoing it a lot which could be good against your opponents. I'm not denying that. And going 70 is like full on crazy mode, which again,
Can we go? Can we go through my questions actually?
Sure. Yeah.
Because this database is just a small. Next time we do a proper session with my Bet365 database, and that's and now let's go from my stuff.
Okay.
So yeah, I wanted to lower my VPIP from 30 to 25. That's the main adjust. I think that you agree with that.
Yeah.
Because it's just burning money.
Yeah. We can
especially
look at,
out of position.
Yeah, we can look at if I do this, if I do like filter, and you basically call. That's on flop 2. Okay. And you are not on the big blind, so it could be kind of anywhere except the big blind. These are your call calls. We could look at some of the hands. So overall, you're not losing in this sample, but I mean, this is just a tiny sample. It's just 194 hands. So I wouldn't even like care about the win rate or anything like that. Yeah, let's see what hands you're calling. I mean, it looks reasonable, right? It's not like there are no crazy hands that you're calling.
Yeah. Maybe I played a different strategy kind of on this 8-8. I don't know, but it seems to be a pretty big click.
Yeah, this one is a little bit like. Okay, so, one is this guy. So okay. I mean, we don't have enough hands to even care about this. So this, I mean, you probably don't even remember this hand, right? But yeah, this is way too loose. But yeah, most of the hands.
Calling on the small blind. Maybe that was
you call on the small
that was misclick.
Oh, okay.
I just played 3-bet or fold.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah, so all of the hands that I'm seeing are reasonable. So what you're essentially doing is you're calling the correct hands to call, just at a very high frequency rather than GTO would do it at a lower frequency.
Do you have some kind of rule? Just how many % of the villain's open range should I call them? Let's say maybe MP versus big blind. Yeah. It's like 80% of their range or something like that with 3x open.
You could try to. Have you tried this tool that I made?
No, okay, I haven't seen that.
Okay. This is a tool that I made. You can use it. I'll show you later how to do it. But basically, let's say what scenario did you ask me? MP
big blind versus MP open, 3x.
Okay. That's it. It's so easy. You click on the position, and you click on 3x.
Do you think that this range is good with 6.5% rake?
Yeah, I think. Well, it depends. If you have rake back, then yes.
20%.
Okay. Did you speak with the rakeback guys, the affiliate rakeback guys?
Yeah, I need to make a new account on my friend.
Okay, fair enough. If you have a lot of rakeback, then you should be calling wider, because even if you lose a little bit of win rate in your graph, the amount of rakeback that you earn is going to be higher than the win rate you lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah, simple.
Okay. So yeah, with this tool, like for example, let's say you are button and UTG opens, right? So you click on UTG.
Yeah, I checked this. I just checked this thing out.
2.5.
Yeah.
Hijack opens your cutoff. It goes to 2. It shows you just what you call, which frequency. It's very fast. You just click on the 2 positions and yeah. So that's basically. I recommend you. I mean, I don't hate the thing about like calling a little bit more when fishes are in the blinds, but yeah, you shouldn't do it to an extreme degree.
Okay, so what about delaying migration versus many passive racks to gain maximum EV? I think that's a proper adjustment for the games I'm playing, because they don't probe turns. You know what I mean? enough.
Delaying aggression with bluffs, you mean?
Yeah, delaying aggression with the bluffs
So
for the turn or even for the river.
that is a good idea if they actually so if they have a low probing, which would be like, low probe would be pretty low, okay? Like
30.
30 is kind of like, yeah, it's pretty low, but it's not like extremely low. It's not
Really?
yeah, it's not like GTO. Have you studied
Well,
GTO probes?
I studied some GTO, but I wasn't going crazy over it.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, GTO probes maybe it doesn't even get up to 40, probably. So 30 is low. It actually is low, but it's not extremely low. So if they have a low probe, like let's say 30, and then they have an overfolding to a delayed c-bet, then yeah, you should just check flop and bet turn with any two
Okay.
cards. I can get behind that. I wouldn't do it against those players, of course, with value though, because they're never going to be overbetting per turn with a probe. They're gonna be probing very, very low frequency. So I would just do it with pure shit, just with air. Just check flop and bet turn.
Oh, okay. What do you think about my free bet? It's like 7.5. Should I go for like 9% overall?
Your
Just
three bet?
call less. Yeah, because
Well, here
because
I'm seeing 9.4 on this sample. Your three bet here is 9.4.
Yeah, that's bad sample. So mine is like 7.5 because I try to adjust
Yeah,
for the fishes on the blinds, but
yeah.
I don't think that's the best idea.
I think that the right adjustment on a pool full of weak players is to three bet a lot. Okay, because I could show you. Let me pull up simple preflop. I'm gonna show you a few, or at least a sim that I have. I made a few node lock sims, and we're gonna see blind versus blind low 4-bet. Okay, so this is small blind opening. So let's look at the ranges here. So this is small blind opening. This is the opening range. So it opens with 3-bet. Okay. So with 3-bet, the green is the 3-bet. Okay, this is what the solver came up with, and then small blind actually 4-bets. Okay, and you see that it's 4-betting 16% and it's calling 33%. So it's actually folding about 50%. It's not overfolding, but it is under 4-betting. And what GTO does against that is to 3-bet almost 3-bet and fold blind versus blind. Okay. So what this means is that what you should be trying to do against players that have low 4-bet percentages is to 3-bet them very, very aggressively, especially when you're in position of them, right?
Yeah.
And this
They
also
don't
works.
realize so much equity in the other position.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the reason.
They allow you to realize all of your equity, because even if they call you, you can still hit a hand and check and like bet flop, c-bet flop, check back turn, and you got to the river. You realized your full equity, right? So they need to be 4-betting you a lot when they're out of position if they don't want you to realize equity. And so if players, I mean, if you say that there are some bots playing, maybe the bots are just following GTO charts, in which case you should kind of just play GTO against them pre-flop. But if they are fish or kind of weak players, you should probably just crank the 3-bet up a lot. Okay, and this idea works against like if you're button and UTG or hijack opens, you should be cranking up the 3-bet a lot. Okay.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I noted that, man. That's really good advice, because I think I was just misunderstanding adjusting.
Even if they don't overfold to the 3-bet, that's very important. Point.
18% GTO.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, 3-betting versus weak players is super, super good. And
what
also,
do you think about it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Let's go.
Yeah, let's look at this is our, I mean, you kind of do that already, but I'm going to show you how extreme you can get. Do you actively exploit people who three bet too little from, or like too infrequently from the big blind when you are the small blind? Like you try to steal the blinds more often when you think they three bet less?
Man, I steal the blinds versus some people I steal 100%.
Okay, good, good. I was just gonna
Because
say, I was just
yeah,
gonna say that, yeah.
what is the threshold for you actually? Because for me it's like 60% with 3x open.
What threshold
60% fold versus big blind versus small blind.
for opening any two cards?
Yeah.
I would look at actually both the folds and the three bets. Because if they, let's say they call 50% of the time and they three bet you maybe 9% of the time.
Yeah,
you
but
should-
for auto profit units, you need 62.5% folding. Yeah.
Yes, but auto profit doesn't take into account that even when you have a trash hand, sometimes you're gonna hit the flop and win. Okay, so
Yeah,
even,
exactly. That's why I'm making it 60 instead of 62.5.
yeah, it probably should be even lower. Like if they don't defend, like, I mean, the GTO is maybe defending like around 60% overall. If they defend 50 and they don't three bet enough, which is usually going to be the case, when they under defend big
It's
ones,
two cards with 50.
What?
It's profitable to open any two cards from small blind with when they fold 50.
If they fold 50 and they under three bet you, then yes.
Oh
I
shit,
can,
man.
I can almost guarantee. I can almost guarantee that. Like, look at this. Look at this sim. Okay, I note lock big blind. I note lock big blind to fold 44%, which is not overfolding, as you know. 44% is fine, but it's three betting 13%, which is not that low, but it should be 17, 18%. Okay. Because they are three betting only 13%, and I assure you that your pool is probably three betting this at most, except for the bots. Like the weak players are going to be three betting like 13%, 12%, 10%, I don't know, 9% maybe,
Yeah, 5%.
5%. In that case, even if this looks kind of like normal, you can open like, look, like this is what GTO, or rather, this is what the solver is exploiting with. Like, it's opening 60% and it's not even overfolding at all. So just imagine if we could do like a quick test. I don't know if we have like, yeah, I think it's gonna take too much time. But I'm sure that if I crank this up to 50% fold, this is gonna go up to 100%. I'm pretty sure. So you should be
with 13% free bet.
13% three bet and 50% fold is probably gonna go like up to
Shit, man.
almost maybe like 90%, something like that. Yeah, definitely. Because again,
Even with 6% right.
yeah. Like, and this is like, take into account that the solver is having big blind play perfectly postal. Okay, so it's having like a fish preflop that can adjust and be perfect postal. So imagine if he, not only he's under defending big blind and he's under three betting, but imagine that postflop he fucks up a lot and he's gonna call your value bets too light, and like imagine that. Now suddenly your hands realize even more equity and you can open even wider. Okay. So yeah, usually if I see someone like right now I play GG poker, so I don't have HUDs. That kind of sucks because I like to open any two cards on the small blind.
No, but I've heard that they made some changes and now you have some built-in
Yeah,
HUD.
no, but it's only stats from the last session of Villain, so it's like retarded. It's useless.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So yeah, if you see someone like around, I mean, if you see someone with 5% rank three bet, even if they defend properly, you should open any two cards. That's the actual issue they have. Like they three bet 5% blind versus blind, it doesn't matter if they call you. Like you're gonna hit some hands and win either way. So you should just open any two cards.
Okay, good to know. Good to know, man. I noted that.
Yeah. And yeah, if they have like a more like reasonable like 13%, but they fold like 50 instead of 44, then again you can go like almost any two cards, maybe 90% or maybe any two cards. I will make some calculations with my preflop solver and come up with like the threshold for at what point we open any two cards. That should be interesting.
Yeah,
Without
that's
even
good to
taking
know all the margins.
without even taking into account that the players are going to play bad post flop. So the solver is not even going to attack that leak. But yeah, although on the button, you shouldn't be getting that that aggressive. Okay, so on the button, let me see if
So what range would you suggest on the button?
on the button, look, I have button versus bad small blind and big blind.
Oh yeah, that's the case.
Yeah, so it's not extremely high. Okay, it's like a little bigger because now you have to. I mean, of course, my assumptions might not be even like what your pool does. So,
Oh man, I open some different ranges. I open every suited hand instead of low KX. Is that cool?
I mean, I'm not. I think that these so suited hands are really good if villain is calling you a lot. Okay, and hands
Yeah.
with a king or an ace, hands with blockers, they're really good if villains are three betting you a lot. All right, if they are overfolding a lot, but they three bet you more or less properly, you should open more of these hands and less of the suited ones. Because of course, with the suited hands, what you want to do is, or rather, it's not what you want to do, but they perform better post flop. So if they call you, you still have a lot of EV in your hand to make up for the fact that they called you, right? So that's why you would open more of the suited hands. And if you open more of the king high hands and queen high hands and all that, that is if
Yeah.
they are three betting you a lot because you're blocking their three bets and therefore they stop. Basically,
Yeah.
from your point of view, they're not three betting you as much. Essentially.
Yeah, I got you, man.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a good job because the population is low, free bet, high cold calls. So yeah,
Yeah.
suited hands work fine. Is
Okay.
that
Yeah.
free X open or 2.5?
This is 3x open actually.
Oh, free X
I have
open.
I have a sim here in my tool thingy. If you go to
Is it okay that I'm doing only free X open because the rake is high and just want to lower some open ranges and just do free X? Is that
it's
good adjustment?
actually not. I'm not gonna like. I think it's fine. If pool is really weak, I would say 3x is pretty okay. Even going like 3.5x on the small blind and button could be good potentially.
Yeah, of course. I'm sorry. When the fishes are on the button on the big blind, I'm doing sometimes 4x's.
4x, okay, fair enough. So look, this is on my preflop tool. We have a couple of exploit sims. This is versus loose passive, so it's kind of similar, like normal. This is button versus a loose passive big blind, and yeah, it's pretty much normal.
No low aces.
Yeah, basically what it's doing, it's calling a lot, and therefore what I just explained to you, it's calling a lot, and it's not three betting a lot, and therefore the ace high hands and the king high hands lose a lot of potential. Even the queen and the jack high hands, they don't, right? You open them because you block three bets, and if villain doesn't three bet you, but they call you a lot, these hands don't perform well post flop. They are kind of shit post flop, and so their value is in blocking three bets. So
Yeah,
versus,
but that's versus GTO, right? Or versus loose passive.
just no, this is versus a loose passive player. Okay, this is a player that calls you a lot, like they call you a lot, which is generally not pool, but this is, for example, a player that would call you a lot, but not three bet you enough. And you would open like, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the case for my game. That's the kind of range I should open.
Do they actually call you too wide on the big blind?
Yeah, man, for sure, for sure.
Because usually people who overfold blind versus blind, they tend to also overfold to a
Yeah,
lesser
but
degree.
I'm talking about the fishes.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, okay, I can get behind that. And I guess this would be the range against a weak passive, which means a player that is overfolding and under three betting. and you are on the button, right? So you are suddenly opening like a lot of suited hands, like you said, like 5-2 suited, like
Yeah, but
just
still,
everything.
when the fishes are overfolding flops like crazy, and with
Oh yeah.
versus one
Oh yeah.
third, I should open like 55 or
Yeah,
something
yeah,
range.
I agree. I agree with that. I agree with that. The problem with fishes is that you usually don't have that big of a sample size to kind of gauge that. But yeah, um, it's important to point out that we're opening 3.5. Like the solver is deciding to open 3.5 when villain is not three betting you and is overfolding. Okay, so opening to 3.5, opening bigger when people don't three bet you enough. That is a good adjustment, and that's why I think that 3x in micro stakes and small stakes, going 3x as a default could be fine. I want to ask you about a couple of preflop spots. What do you think pool ISOs against a limp? So, for example, if UTG limps and a random player in your pool is on the button, what do you think they're ISOing? What kind of range they're ISOing?
Too tight for sure.
Too tight. Why do you think so? Like,
Uh, because overall they are passive, and it's nothing different in this kind of spot. And I think it's something about like 30% range and should be like 45 or something.
okay, so actually, the actual GTO number should probably be like 10%. Okay, if you limp on UTG, you're not a fish. Okay, let's forget about fish. Yeah, if a fish opens, you should ISO very aggressively. Okay, that's fine.
Is that like how aggressive?
Like let's say yeah 35% or whatever. It doesn't matter. Like if a fish
With
limps,
4x or how what sizing?
I would go generally 5x 6x in position and like 8x or bigger when out of position.
Yeah, I'm actually differentiating that by the hand strength I got as well to
Yeah,
make it
that's
full
fine.
exploit.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah. So let's say forget about fish for a second. If a reg limped on UTG, button should be ISOing like around maybe 10%. I'm not sure about the exact number, but nowhere near 30 or 40% like the usual. Like the usual advice is that if you're on the button and you are going to ISO a limp, you're going to ISO a cutoff range, right? Have you ever heard that? Like you ISO the previous position to the one that you are playing.
Like
You know,
what do you mean?
I mean, like
Versus, yeah, I try to ISO like 80% of the opener's limp. Yeah.
80% of the openers limp. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
that's an interesting idea. So would you say? So essentially, let's look at a GTO for a second.
Yeah, of course, man. Versus regular, I just check his limp stat and see that he's fucking nutted. So I'm isolating him really tight.
I just want to show you a potential exploit that you could explore. Maybe not. Just you could research your own pool and see if it fits. So let's say UTG limps here. Okay. So of course UTG doesn't have any limps, but this sim still has the limps available. So we limp, falls to button. This is the range that button, not the green. The green is calls. The rest of the colors are the races that button is doing. Do you think pool is being this tight, or do you think they're wider than this?
Versus regular, you mean?
Yeah, versus you. Let's say you are the one who limps. Do you think they ISO this, or do you think they ISO more something like this?
Like everything except green. Yeah.
Oh, you don't think they ISO something like this then? In that
No,
scenario.
man.
Okay,
It's
fair enough. Fair
way
enough.
tighter for sure.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Because in some pools, people ISO very wide against regs and fish. They don't give a shit. And in that scenario, you could look to limp a lot of the premium hands from early positions. Right. That could be an exploit that you could
Oh, yeah.
explore. If they're way too passive, then don't even bother. but it's something that could work if pool is ISOing
Yeah, that's
a
a good
little bit too
idea,
much.
man.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions about this
Yeah, yeah.
preflop stuff?
Actually,
Or other
about
stuff?
this notes, everything is
Okay.
clear. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
What about actually the seabeds? Do you have some proper database? Like how does 1/3 seabeds work on the flop versus half pot?
Okay, so I did a database. I did a pool stat MDA for this, but I did like almost a year ago. So right now, I'm sure right now it's completely useless. And I did it for 200 and now. I'm sure right now it's completely useless because people have changed their strategy a lot. But basically, what I found is that pool is not really um, cognizant enough of the sizing that you're using. So if you bet way too big, they should fold more, but they should fold extremely more, but they don't fold that much. And if you bet very small, they should fold a lot less, and they don't quite get there. You know what I mean? They treat sizings as if they were a little bit too similar. You know what I'm saying? So what
Yeah,
I'm
they're not. Yeah, they're not elastic with the bet
exactly,
sizing.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. They're not. But that was on my old database. Like I'm not even sure if that
Yeah, but
applies.
that's what I'm feeling. I haven't done the proper research because I don't have like HM3 upgrade, you know, to do this kind of filters. But
Yeah.
I see that versus 1/3 they don't check raise enough for sure, and I think that's a better idea to bluff with 1/3 than like half pot, maybe, you know, button late positions versus blinds. Yeah.
I would advise for you to not look at it that way. So for this, I would actually just study GTO. You're not gonna like my answer, but I would study GTO for these type of things, and then use the MDA and the database, the pool databases that you're researching, kind of to adjust that a little bit. But I would say that the main idea should be to kind of try to play somewhere along the lines of GTO on the flop. And then usually on the turn on the river, you can like kind of get more exploitative. But I would try to study kind of, you know, I would study pretty hard on the flop c-bet strategies. Because different flops, like you can't really look at, okay, they're overfolding to 1/3. Therefore, because, okay, this is the issue with database MDA research. What if they overfold to a 1/3 bet on the flop and they overcall to a overbet on the flop? But when they call the overbet on the flop, maybe they massively overfold the turn or the river. You know what I mean? So you
Yeah, of
can
course,
never.
man. You need to take into consideration future streets as well.
Yes, and there are things that you can't kind of know. Like you don't exactly know what EV is higher, even if you know that they overfold to 1/3 on the flop. Because again, they could be calling wide to your 2x pot on the turn on the flop. Then they could be calling wide again on the turn to your pot, and then they could be like folding 90% of range on the river, and therefore going 2x pot and pot would be printing the highest line of all. So these are things that looking at MDA is going to be like you would have to look at an extremely big amount of data that is even like almost impossible to have enough of a sample for that. But yeah, I would advise you to actually study the GTO strategies on the flop and try to inform them and adjust them with the pool database that you do with those like, oh, they overfold 1/3, that type of stuff. Because then you're going to understand a lot of when you study GTO, you're going to start seeing patterns in the strategies that you recognize, and you're going to start learning why GTO is doing that. And therefore, you're going to understand how to exploit villains who are playing
Yeah, for
different.
sure, man. I've studied GTO, some it's not like I don't know anything about GTO.
Okay, yeah,
I've
I'm
done
not saying you.
some high-level courses, so yeah, I
Mhm.
know pretty good margins, man. I have a lot of saved range in Flopzilla, like what to defend a big blind versus button and on a
Good, good.
versus most common situations like that, versus 1/3 versus half pot versus 2/3. So yeah, I have pretty good understanding. I think
Okay, that
nobody
is
at the microstakes have understanding like I do.
good, good, good. That's good. That's awesome. But I'm just saying that the sizings you use, specifically, I'm talking about the sizings mostly. The sizing you use on each flop shouldn't be only informed by the MDA pool databases. They should also be informed by what GTO wants to use as a sizing on that flop. Okay, so let's say like a flop comes two-tone, like I don't know, like 10, 7, 3, two-tone, and you start going like 1/3 because they are on that flop, they probably don't overfold if you bet 1/3, because the 1/3 sizing, if you're, for example, single raise pot, button versus big blind, that sizing doesn't actually target anything in the range. You know what I mean? And so,
But who are we playing versus, like unknown or
yeah,
we're
unknown.
talking?
Let's say unknown.
Okay.
Against a fish, what I would do always on almost every flop is to have a polarized range that bets very big, and then a checking
Like how much?
range
70%?
or bigger, or like pot. Could be even bigger potentially. But yeah, I would split my sizings versus fish, where my very strong hands and some bluffs as well, because the fishes are not completely dumb. If they see you do something once, they probably assume that you do it that way always. So if they see that you bet with the nuts on the flop once for pot, and then the next time you do it with a strong flush draw, that's gonna work well. So essentially, what I'm saying is that against fish, what I would do is bet really big with a range composed of very strong hands and bluffs, and have maybe a smaller sizing for kind of a protection bet, some medium strength hands, and a checking range. Okay, that's what I would do against fish on almost every board.
Oh, okay. But about the bluffing with the high sizing, are you talking about the semi bluffing or
Yes.
air bluffing as well?
No, usually with air bluffs, it doesn't really make sense with complete air unless they are massively overfolding to the big sizing. Usually the complete air, unless it has really good blockers, it doesn't like going big, because what you want to. So with bluffs, here's a heuristic to differentiate between how big you should or how big the bluff wants to bet. So one possible heuristic is that when you have equity with your bluff, so you have a draw of some sort, the stronger the draw, the bigger you want to bet, because the hands that call you still lose if you hit your hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course, man.
And if your hand is drawing to a very weak hand, for example, like your hand is only drawing to a weak overcard, for example, then you should probably bet smaller, because you want villain to call you with a certain set of hands that lose to your overcard when you hit them. Okay.
Okay, actually, I'm counting it like that. Can you correct me if I'm wrong? For example, I have a nut flush draw on the flop, and I bet like 2/3, which needs like 40% fold equity, right?
Sure.
But I have this semi bluff, so I'll just count it like I need like 20% more less fold equity from a villain.
Yeah.
So if he falls like 32%, that's a good bet, and if not, it's not. It's something like around that.
But how do you know if they're folding 32%? That's the issue. Right?
Yeah.
Do you actually have stats to know that on that flop versus that specific size?
I try to estimate that.
Okay, you can. Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, that would be the idea mainly. And then if you have a weaker hand, then basically you're not drawing to beat their calling range. When you're bluffing on the flop and on the turn, what you're trying to do partly is to be drawing to beat their calling range. Okay. So if you can beat a stronger calling range, you bet bigger with your bluff. And then another idea is that the stronger hands you block on the flop, this is not as important because blockers are not going to be like, blockers are very important on the river, but they're usually not that important on the flop. But yeah, the bluffs on flop and turn as well, to a lesser degree than river. When you have stronger blockers, you should bet bigger. And when you have weaker blockers or you don't block shit, you should bet smaller with that bluff. So I would say that, yeah, that you should study GTO to find all of these little rules for different hands, so you can choose different lines with different hands that exploit the fish the most amount possible. Okay? Instead of being like, okay, I'm gonna bet 1/3 with my bluffs and pot with my value because I saw that pool is overflowing. You look at your specific hand and you can look at the properties of that hand and be like, okay, pool overflows to 30%, but this hand has extremely good properties for bluffing for a bigger size, for example. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course, man.
So
By properties, you mean blockers and
blockers, equity, essentially, yeah, blockers and equity.
And the redraw potential.
Yeah, the redraw potential would be what I'm calling equity. It would be like, are you familiar with robust equity and non-robust equity with that concept?
I guess I am. If you could just briefly tell me what's that about.
I'm going to tell you what it is, and I'm going to recommend a book for you to read. It's really good. It's kind of like a GTO book, so it's not going to teach you like how to play. It's not going to be like, okay, I'm going to play this way, but it's going to show you a few concepts that might be new to you, and you could apply them in a creative way to your game somehow. Okay. So the thing about equity is that it's very simple. You're going to clearly understand it. Some equity is more robust than other. So for example, if you have a middle pair, you might have 60% equity, but if you bet and villain calls, you don't have 60% equity anymore because villain range became stronger by you betting and him calling. You understand that, right?
Yeah.
So you lost maybe half of your equity. So instead of 60%, once you bet and he calls, now you have 30% equity only. But a nut flush draw has extremely robust equity because if you overbet 3 times the pot and villain calls, you're still drawing to a nut flush. You're still going to beat them if you hit your flush, right? So if you have 30% equity with your nut flush and you bet and he calls, you're going to still have 30% equity roughly. That is robust equity.
Okay, I totally got this concept.
Yeah, it's very simple. So basically, when you have a lot of robust equity, could be like the nuts, like an actual value hand, or a strong draw, or like on the flop, it could be like backdoor straight draw with backdoor flush draw. That would be robust equity. Because if you hit the straight or the flush, you win. So with those hands, you generally want to be betting more often and betting bigger. And with hands that have less robust equity, so for example, maybe a hand that is not drawing to anything, just a random bluff, is just drawing to a pair, to hit in a random pair, that would be very non-robust equity. You would be more prone to checking it or betting it smaller, as well as like medium strength hands that if you bet them and you get called, your equity goes to down the shitter, essentially.
You mean draw to pair?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how it works. Like if you're drawing to pairs, of course you're also drawing to like river trips and to pair, but that's But if you're drawing to only to a pair, then you don't want to narrow valence range so that whenever you hit that pair, you can actually win the hand, essentially. And what's it's called No Limit Hold'em for Advanced Players by Matthew Janda. I recommend you read that Again, it's not going to teach you how to play, but it has a lot of very, very interesting concepts. Some of them will be familiar to you probably. Maybe you understand all of them from the get-go, but I think it will refresh them and it will make you look at the game, in a more like fresh way.
All right, I'm gonna check this out.
Yeah. Okay. So, you have any other questions?
Yeah, can you just quickly answer some of my questions? We
Yeah.
finish that.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I said send you more cash for another session, and that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, I got everything. So to summarize it, I should be more aggressive with check raises and raises as well because my stats are lower. That's for sure. Yeah.
What I'm not necessarily when you call. So when you call pre-flop, your raises and check raises are actually fine from what I saw in your database.
But it should be more like 10% instead of 5.
Are you hearing that kid crying? Oh my god. Holy shit. Now, when you call pre-flop, your stats is like 15% raise, which is good. The problem is when you are opening and you get called by an in-position player, at that point, when you check, you don't usually raise. That is
check raise as PFR.
Exactly, yeah. Which again, you explained to me that villains are really, really passive and they don't stab enough. In that case, I could understand that you would do that. But the most common league, or I think it's a very common league still, I think that pool sometimes over stabs. So they stab way too much, like you do, for example. Which I'm not saying it's bad for you to stab that much, but a lot of players in pool do stab like 50, 60, 70%. And against those, you should pretty much just check the nuts always on the flop and always check raise. No exception, basically.
What do you think about raises in position in 3-bet pots like button versus big blind or something like that with total error? Because some people tend to like 1/3 or half pot c-bets all of their range, and that should works like a charm. And I was trying to do that lately, but I don't have big enough sample. But
okay, I'm gonna tell you what the node lock solver does against that type of thing. Okay, so I assume you know how a node lock works on a solver. Basically, like you force villain to play in a certain way instead of playing GTO, right?
Yeah.
So if you take in a 3-bet pot in the solver, if you force the big blind to c-bet range for 1/3, let's say, what the in-position player, the button in this case, what the button is going to do is not to raise. Raising is not the best EV line against that leak. What the in-position player does is to flat, very, very wide, and then attack the pot on later streets very aggressively. Okay? That's what the solver decides to do against that leak. That particular
because
leak.
that's where you use your positional advantage the most.
You're using your positional advantage, and also, so here's the things that could happen. So if they bet range on the flop, they have an extremely weak range, and then on the turn they should be checking and overfolding to the stab a lot. Okay, that's like the first thing that could happen. Okay, in that case you would just call flop, and then they would be checking very, very often the turn, and you just bet always with air, right? Another thing that could happen is that they are betting very wide on the flop, like again, range betting 1/3. Then they are not actually checking enough on the turn, and they are again over bluffing massively the turn. What you do there is, again, the same thing. You call again a bunch, and then on the river, again, they should be checking a lot because their range is extremely weak. And at that point, you would just bet in 2 cards on the river. And if they actually just over bluff 3 streets, then it's very simple. What you should do, you should just call the 3 streets with any bluff catcher and print. So
yeah, man, that was a very good answer. Yeah, I got you.
You understood all of the process, right? Yeah.
Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, that's what what those fucking bots are doing. Yeah, they overbluff like 2 barrels a lot and give up river. Or
Yeah.
versus me, they adjust sometimes as well river.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So that's one thing that you could do there, and that is actually what GTO prefers to do, just to because of course if you bet range on the flop, especially if you have a polarized pre-flop range. So if you polarize pre-flop and you bet range on the flop, your range is garbage. So on the turn you should be checking like 70%, 80%. If they do that, you take the pot right then and there. And if they don't, if they keep over bluffing, then you delay your exploit to future streets, essentially. Any more questions?
No, man, that's it.
Okay, great. So yeah, that's it for this lesson.
Yeah, man, thank you a lot. Yeah, that's a really productive session.
Okay, thank you. Nice to meet you, by
Bye.
the way. Bye.
Yeah, nice to meet you too, man.